counted 73,000 Amazon fires so far this year. But that figure includes some outside Brazil, in Peru and Bolivia, that share part of the enormous rainforest. Critically, though, INPE has pointed the finger at the Bolsonaro government, saying fires are 80% up on last year following his inauguration at the start of this year, and relaxation of environmental controls. President Bolsonaro today televised a meeting on how to respond to the crisis.
Nós vamos, se Deus quiser, juntos achar solução para isso e que vai dar uma satisfação para o mundo, inclusive. E pessoas com pensamento como o senhor Macron, ele deve pensar 2, 3 vezes antes de querer sair de uma situação complicada que se encontra, de uma rejeição enorme no seu país.
That rebuke followed President Macron linking ratification of a trade deal to action on the Amazon. Also at the G7 summit, nations marshalled $22 million to help fight fire. President Bolsonaro, an avowed climate change skeptic, has described that cash as a colonial insult. So what's the right way to incentivize better cooperation?
Bolsonaro, like any Brazilian president, is very, very concerned when it seems that the international community is ordering him about. I mean, believe it or not, the Brazilian army still has very current plans to push back any invasion of the Amazon area by North America or Europe. It seems absurd to us, but actually people really have believed this over the decades in Brazil, and Bolsonaro is of a military background, and certainly this is part of his DNA, as it is of some other Brazilians. So I'm afraid the sort of things that have been saying about turning the Amazon into some kind of international protectorate are exactly the wrong thing to say.
And indeed, at the weekend's Biarritz summit, there was no consensus about doing more for the Amazon, whether that meant committing substantial funds or mounting a sustained campaign to pressurise the Brazilian government. Critically, it was President Trump who preferred to sideline the issue.
I think it definitely does make a difference what the U.S. does, with the U.S., being one of the second largest contributor to climate change. And I think it's given Bolsonaro the sense that he can get away with more, and that, if the U.S. is not going to sign on to climate agreements and take action against climate change, why should Brazil? It helps to fuel his argument and give credit to his argument that economic growth is more important, that why should Brazil sacrifice its own economic benefits for the rest of the world? It's really Brazil's decision alone.
The autumn could bring answers of its own, the heavy rains that usually moderate the burning season. But the deeper question will remain of whether the Amazon environment is purely a question for Brazil and its neighbours, or whether the wider world should have a say.
Mark Urban. Well, here with me now is the UK-based Brazilian scientist Erica Berenguer, who studies the effects of the fire in the Amazon region. From Sao Paulo, we have Ricardo Magnus Osorio Galvo, who was fired by Brazil's President Bolsonaro from his post as head of the National Institute for Space Research, which was responsible for tracking deforestation of Brazil's rainforest. Good evening to you both. Ricardo Galvo, what actually happened to you when you were sacked? Why were you sacked?
Well, when President Bolsonaro had made a very strong accusation with respect to our data on deforestation, I immediately recognized that I had to stoutly counterattack, because he was not only dismissing our data, but he was making a very strong assail to the Brazilian science.
And
then, because of my response, he decided to sack me from the position I had at INPE.
So is anyone giving him truthful signs now that you've gone? Is anyone telling him the truth now?
I'm sorry, I did not quite understand you. Could you repeat it, please?
So do you think anyone is telling him what's happening for real now, or has he made sure that he doesn't hear those kind of statistics anymore?
could not understand.
Don't worry,
again.
I'm going to go to my guest in the studio, Erica. Why, have there been these exponential increases in the fires?
So fire is the end process of deforestation. The way deforestation works in the Amazon is that first an area is chopped down, it's left to dry during the first few months of the dry season, and then it's set on fire. That's how it works. So fire doesn't naturally occur in the Amazon. So now we are seeing an increase in deforestation according to the space agency that Ricardo Galvão got fired from. And we are also seeing an increase in fire occurrence. So those things go together. So that's what we're seeing, an increase in deforestation, increase in fire.
But President Bolsonaro doesn't want to hear that. Would it be fair to say that he sees environmental protection as an impediment to the country's economic development?
Of course, Brazil needs to be developed. Of course, and places where I come from Rio, I'm Brazilian, we have human development indexes similar to Europe, while the Amazon have those similar or very poor countries in Africa. So of course the Amazon needs to be developed for its people. But for the past 50 years, we've been using the same model of economical development. And it's not working, because if it had worked, we'd have been seeing the levels of development in the region, the low levels that we have right now. So we need a new development strategy. Clearly, just deforesting for primary products like beef, like cattle, and soy, it's not working.
So when it comes to arguing whether this is an issue for Brazil alone, for its part of the Amazon, or whether this is a global issue, what do ordinary Brazilians think?
Well, the ordinary Brazilian would say that probably that's a domestic issue, which I'm Brazilian and I highly disagree, because of course the Amazon has impact on the climate across the world. However, we have sovereignty over the part of the Amazon that is in our country. That cannot be, we shouldn't have any military intervention or anything like that, but you can have carrots and sticks. We can have premiums for good policies that promote the halting deforestation, as we had in the past, but it can also have sanctions towards products that are coming from the deforested
But doesn't
areas.
it look like G7, the kind of rich part of the world, is telling Brazil what to do, and probably that kind of attitude, of course, just fuels Bolsonaro's resistance.
It feels a narrative that the developed countries are trying to keep Brazil undeveloped. It fits the narrative pretty well. But we have had help from, for example, Norway and Germany, that alone put almost £1 billion in the Amazon Fund to help protect the Amazon.
Right.
So now he's saying that that money is not welcome, but we had it for 10 years, and he's also saying that we don't have money to fight the fires or to fight deforestation. So it's a war narrative. That's how I see it.
Well, let's go back to Ricardo. Ricardo, do you think that this is an issue for Brazil itself, a sovereign issue for Brazil itself to solve, or is it a global issue for international leaders to solve?
Oh, this is certainly an international issue. However, that has to be treated with, in a sensible way. Obviously, the sovereignty of Brazil over the Amazon and of the other countries over the Amazon cannot be questioned. However, the problem is very serious, affects the whole humanity. So this kind of confrontation we see now between the President of France and President of Brazil is of no help. We should evaluate to a sort of proposals that are acceptable for Brazil, for the other countries, and also for the whole world. So we should stop, in my opinion, this strong confrontation and come with very proactive proposals.
What kind of proposal would you think would be good?
Well, first of all, we have to recall that most of the economic evolution of the Amazon region has been over and over again restarted. We should explore more the biodiversity of the forest to make sustainable development. Remember that most of the wood cut in the Amazon, they are illegally, they export to Europe. So Europeans buy it. So many companies explore the Amazon, they are also from abroad. So I believe the world should face this problem more seriously, more in a constructive way, and not only make accusations to Brazil or the other countries that have the Amazon area. We have to remember there are 20 million people living there. Cannot just tell them, stay where you are and do nothing.
Thank you. Finally, Eric, President Bolsonaro says that he's making a concerted effort this month to deal with the environmental issues, then he's going to make a concerted effort next month. Is there a way to get to his heart, do you think?
Not over the Amazon, I think. I think the Amazon has been a key part of his electorate in terms of having a very anti-environment agenda. Well, during campaign, he argued about extinguishing the environmental ministry, for example. And so he's been today, in the middle of all this crisis of fires, today he was talking about opening indigenous lands for mining in a meeting today with all the governors from Amazonian states in Brazil. So clearly, it's a pretty hard issue, but I think that Brazil do listen to the international outcry, to the international opinion, and maybe sanctions to primary products coming from the Amazon and premiums as well for those that are not coming from deforestation areas. I think that can work.
Thank you both very much indeed. OxyContin